If you like growing food, then you might like eating food. And if you like eating food, then you might like cooking food. Well, go check out the first season of Backyard Kitchen, available on Tubi for free. Available on all smart TVs and online. That's TUBI, all free, first season of Backyard Kitchen. Sustainable garden design. What is that? I don't know, but we're going to break it down right here on the Backyard Gardens podcast.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens podcast, where we talk about all things gardening. We're your hosts, Ben in Batavia, and you can find me gardening in the country.
And you'll find me gardening in the city. Get ready as we dig deep into this
wonderful world of gardening, where we learn to grow and grow for change. I just want everybody to know that I had to do 3 intros because Batavia's over there killing fungus gnats, clapping like somebody's doing something good. So here we are. That was the final one.
Not the final fungus gnat.
No, definitely not. Also, if you would like to become a patron and help support the podcast, the link is below. What month is this coming out, Batavia? Is this in June?
We're in June now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we actually had a very good conversation for the Community Gardens podcast, which is on Patreon, about just biting the bullet and doing it right the first time. So you guys should come check that out, and you'll get an extra mini-sode every month. So also Backyard Kitchen, Season 1, available Tubi and in Canada on TELUS. Thank you. Sustainability gardening.
I got so much crap here, I couldn't reach the bell.
Just waiting for everything to start crashing down like an avalanche.
Yeah, man.
That's terrible.
Look, I should have finished this cookie an hour ago, but go on.
Sustainable garden design. That's what it is. Sustainable garden design. Say that 3 times fast. What is it?
I thought you were going to tell us. I thought you figured it out since, before the break.
Well, we did figure it out. So when we do this, we're going to break them down into different criteria, okay? So each subject will help with these topics. So we're going to break down watering, pollinators, plant selection, fossil fuel, and then we're going to give you tips on how to achieve this goal. So, garden design is something that, man, I struggle hard with it, and this might actually be something that could help me because it gives me a direction to point in. You know what I mean?
Well, it gives me one more kind of box to check to see, does this design make sense?
Yeah.
It's a check and balance of sorts. I was planting this is like going back to April, going into May, I was planting my front yard garden. And you talk about like doing everything that I hadn't planned on doing. And a part of me, it's kind of like this feels good, but there's also like I put lettuce in this itty bitty pot. And the reality is, and it's a really decorative pot, I've had years of experience with having to water this pot over and over and over again, sometimes twice a day, and the question I should be asking myself is, does that make sense? Right? Is that really sustainable design? Is that really, do I have the best plant in that space? I mean, the smallest this pot is the cutest thing. The smallest this thing is, I don't know if there's anything that's going to grow in that itty bitty space, but maybe I should use
well, the question is any
cacti.
Container garden really good for sustainability on that aspect of it?
Ooh, terrible. So you're
I know,
terrible.
dude. So I heard people hiss when I say that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
the way
it's
I
terrible.
squinched up. So in the first episode, when we opened this series, we talked about the act of gardening. Period. Hard stop. Is contributing to sustainability.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're gardening and you happen to garden in containers, yes, you're still being sustainable. I said it.
Yeah,
Words
but
bond.
we need to break it down. That's not fair. We need to break it down a little bit farther than just it's overall sustainable. So if we break down, we're talking about watering right now. Is a container garden sustainable in watering? I'm unfortunately going to have to argue it's not.
As opposed to...
Well, there's a lot of overspray in the containers. There's a lot of multiple waterings of containers. It's a confined space, so the plant can't do what it naturally does and find more water.
So that almost implies anything besides in-ground. So basically, in-ground gardening could be perceived as the most sustainable way of gardening, which could be true.
It could be.
However, the way that we roll on this show, reminder, is, for me, it's good, better, best, right?
Yeah.
And so there are things that you can do to aid in sustainable gardening, even with containers.
Yeah.
Right. So I literally had, so juxtapose the itty bitty container to this larger one that, again, is more decorative, that absolutely looks wonderful in the summer with flowers. It's, I don't know, maybe 16, 17 gallons. I'm terrible at guessing that kind of thing. But it's kind of oval and long. And I pulled out the soil in an effort to refresh it. And I just thought about, this soil is going all the way to the bottom of this pot. There actually is a drainage issue with that pot, but I'm not going to get into that. I added a bunch of wood chips to the bottom of it. So I did a couple of things. One, that's going to be a reserve of sorts for water. Two, I am using less soil, right? Three, I'm still giving my plants what I need, or what they need, I should say. So that's a tip. There it goes. First tip of the show, where you can still be a sustainable gardener, a gardener that practices, sustainable measures and methods with a container.
I think if you have a big enough container, it can be considered, you could get more of that because you're not having to water as much and you have more space for it. I think that would be, and I mean, I have container garden, I have containers and stuff like that. So don't think that I'm sitting here on my high horse judging y'all. I'm just proposing that there may be something that we're not really seeing as far as this goes. But, when you go to design your garden, it's things like that we want to think about. For me personally, one thing that I've always done, which I'm so good. I've been sustainable forever. Not really. What it is I'm really lazy. And I didn't want to plant stuff that I had to nurture, so I planted drought-tolerant plants where I could not get the water to them. And so that's another aspect, you know what I mean? Where basically you don't have to keep up with the watering with them. You can let the rain water them, and maybe every once in a while you can throw a sprinkler on them or something, but you don't have to. And I think that's really, but that came to me from being just lazy, not like, oh, well, I want to save water. Now it grew into that now, but that's kind of how I manage my flower beds and stuff like that.
So 2 of the containers, I was just talking about one of them. There are 2 of them because I like to buy things in doubles. And I have them on either side of that narrow bed that's in the front yard by the fence. And so they're sitting in the soil. Right. And there's some steps I'm taking this year to try to hold on to these pots a little while longer because they're on the end of their days. However, the way that I have this set up now, anytime I water, if I'm watering directly into the pot, it's going to drain inside of a raised bed. Right. So there isn't runoff that's just going on the sidewalk, on my concrete, for those 2 beds in particular. The design that I created for this year is going to feed a bed that's going to have other things growing in it. Boom.
I like it. So are you just going to give tips the whole time, or are we going to save them for the end like we're supposed to? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I want to know where we're going.
I need to recalibrate here.
It's coming. But I mean, so another aspect for watering too that I can think of would be, I'm going to say this slow and close. Full sun doesn't mean all day sun. I'm going to say it one more time. Full sun doesn't mean all day sun. So what do I mean by that? You don't need to have 12 hours of sunlight constantly on a plant for it to grow, even if it's a full sun plant. So you can intermix and add shade at different parts of your garden so it will shade during certain parts of the day. Maybe it's the end of the day at the hottest points of the day. Maybe it's in noon, something like that. And then it can help with water retention as well. Because I've had that problem where I have my garden bed, one of my garden beds gets afternoon sun from noon all the way to 8:30 at night, and it gets blistering hot up there. And so things just cook, man. I can't really get anything to grow. That's why I had to redesign everything.
So as of the recording of this episode, back to the same space, I have 5 containers, pots that are in that same bed I spoke of. And they're 2 of them are the same size. The next 2 are the same size. And there's one that really is a real appropriate size. And it's interesting because I'm doing it just for the aesthetics. It looks nice. I like the way that, the bed starts with these 2 containers and so on. And so I was just looking outside and saying the 2 smaller ones, they aren't as small as the itty bitty one that I'm going to put cacti in, but they're pretty small. And so as we've talked about this, I'm thinking to myself that design isn't optimal,
right?
Because again, that's going to be what I'm going to end up doing is it's going to have different watering needs based on the size of these containers. And so the benefit, while the design may not be optimal, I'll have an opportunity to one, recognize it in this moment and then address it as I go to water.
Right.
So I don't know exactly how I'm going to address it, but I'll figure that out by the time I get outside.
It'll come to you, right?
Uh-huh.
It's one of those things that it becomes, it definitely adds a bit of complexity to the garden as far as like what to plant and how to design it. But I feel like if you take what we're talking about now, the watering piece into account, man, I think that can make or break the success of your garden. Because like for me, by planting drought tolerant, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like I've found much more success because I'm not willing to take that extra step to go out and water, but because I'm not turning on the water, I'm saving water. It's like if you just rearrange those pots and put one in the shade, in a shadier position, not even in the shade. I mean, look at where you'll be with that. You know what I mean? Like, It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, as you were saying, 12 hours of sun. So I was talking to someone that was passing. No, remember the person I told you that lived here originally in this home? So she said that the people that moved in after her family moved out cut down the tree that's like kind of street side, and so I said something like, and so her mother was just like, no, I can't believe he cut down the tree. And so anyway, I was joking like, well, tell her that he at least is now giving me like full sun for my front yard garden, right? Because I don't have a tree in front. But as you were talking about 12 hours, I'm looking and saying like, these little seedlings are probably frying out there right now.
Yeah.
And you're exactly right. Am I going to sacrifice the look that I want, this design that I want to have, that, kind of the aesthetic that I want, and put it in a better place? I'm probably in this moment not going to do it. It's probably going to take me to lose a couple of plants for me to decide maybe this isn't the best space. But, listen, I know you're team container. I'm not going to be nasty to you, but I am absolutely team container. And so I'm looking and saying the best part is I can move that thing around.
Yeah.
I can put it where I want.
And I think that the container itself, here we go. Don't spit on me. I think that the container garden can be a sustainable garden, except what we need to do is it's up to the gardener to make it sustainable. So how are you watering? How are you having your containers positioned? Are you moving them into the right place? I think that is the key.
Come on, somebody.
You know what I mean?
I know you felt it because you're like, here we go.
No, I wasn't. I was clearing my throat. So
No, it's in your control. So again, not to harbor because we got a break coming up, but if I were in today's version of Batavia, if I were shopping for containers again, and I saw these little pots, the original little pots I was talking about, and we're talking about maybe a little larger than a Solo cup. All right, maybe it's larger than that. Definitely smaller than a milk jug. Let's just say that. And so if I was shopping again, as cute as they are, I wouldn't buy them.
Yeah.
You know.
But you learn. You live and learn. And now you know.
Yep.
So in closing out the watering section, I would say to me it's like plant position, garden position and design. So when I say position, shading out other plants a little bit, creating, planting by trees or something. Remembering that full sun is not 12 hours of sun. It's only 6 hours of sun. So there's that. And a lot of things will do good in 5 hours of sun.
So for design, we're not going to cover off on your actual developed watering system, or do we not want to talk about that?
What do you mean?
So a part of your garden design will lend itself to how easy or difficult it is to water, how much water you're actually using. You talk about, how you have to have these hoses draping all over your property because your garden is such a distance away from your watering system. Right. So that's what I mean when we talk about that. I mean, I think some of the obvious ones are hand watering versus overhead watering and all of that. I don't need to go into that stuff, but I do think it's
having
worth
a plan for it. I think having a plan for the way your garden's designed, because you and I we were talking before the show, and my garden is not designed for the way I want to water. And I found that out last year. There's a level of complexity to it, which is why I use the sprinkler, which I know is not the most sustainable, but I spend a lot of time making sure that the water doesn't overspray too much, this, that, and the other. So, but yeah, I think that your design you need to take into account your watering. If you were really going into it saying, hey, I want to be a sustainable gardener, as much sustainability as possible.
And give yourself some grace, because today's price is not tomorrow's price. Shout out to Fat Joe. So today's design may be spot on for your watering needs and the method that you use. But a lot of us evolve in our gardens. Yeah. So the design that's going to be 2-3 years out, we all can't predict where we're going to want to be and how that design is going to look then. So give yourself some grace if, again, you've grown into a space where maybe it made sense previously and it doesn't make sense now. Hell, maybe it didn't make sense originally and it makes even less sense now. It happens, right? Yeah. But it is a key piece. If you have, and a part of this dialogue is, if you're basically about to take a shovel outside, let's try to think through how you're actually going to feed those plants, feeding in this case with water. Last note on this, think about your natural drainage issues, or I don't want to call them issues. Think about your property and how drainage works. Remember I told you about the bed that I created, and it's right under one of the awnings, and so water just drips right there. It's a great opportunity to capture that water. That's it. That's all.
Okay, it sounded like you were mid-sentence, so I was being patient. No, and it's also the composition of your soil too will help with all of that as well. So if you have less drainage, you can put more, on your property, you can put more water retention. I was going to say retention materials inside of your soil in order to help with that and to save water. So, and adding the mulches and stuff like we need to take into account aesthetics. If you aesthetically want a certain kind of mulch, then you can use that, and some are better than others for water retention. So let's go to our break because we are way past it. And then we'll come back and we'll do the pollinators and plant selections.
You're the one that gave Leonard a vacation day on Thursday.
It's because Leonard's lazy. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Backyard Gardens podcast.
If you like what we're doing and you want to continue to support the podcast, head over to our Patreon page to sign up.
You can also make a one-time donation using PayPal. Both of these links are in the description.
With your support, we can continue growing and helping others in their gardens. See ya. We want you to be a part of our gardening community. DM us a picture of your garden at Backyard Gardens TV on Instagram, and we will share it with our listeners.
Okay. So now that we've covered watering, we need to also go into do it. There it is. She got it. We need to do pollinators, and I feel like pollinators and plant selection can go hand in hand, because as we design like our vegetable gardens, we can incorporate within our vegetable gardens something for the pollinators, right? And
Yeah, I agree.
I think, I mean, it's as simple, obviously, as planting a flower, but I think there's more to it than that. And I take the approach of letting things go to bolt. If it's not time for me to plant something and there's going to be in the middle, then I just let them go to bolt, and they're covered with all of them. So
it's such a beautiful thing, the design. So
yeah,
the garden design, the design of growing vegetables, you've never seen a set of bugs and bees and things happier than when they find a plant that's flowered, that's bolting. So they definitely get to go to work there. I definitely think that I put an asterisk by it, only because make sure it's something you're comfortable with, because those seeds are going to drop too if you get from the point of flowering to letting it go to seed there, and making sure that it's not a plant that clearly is, you don't want something that's invasive, but you also don't want to kind of let that thing go to seed, drop in your garden, and if that's not a space you want to continue to grow that thing in. I was told lemon balm, which I grew this year, but it didn't get off to a good start. I grew it last year. It didn't get off to a good start this year. That it spreads like wildfire, when it comes to the seeds blowing all over the place. So you'll have it in spots all over your garden. I haven't had that experience yet, but that's an example of something to consider. I am team, let it do what it's going to do. And then if you feel like it's a problem later on, then address it. But I do want to kind of give that cautionary note.
Yeah. I mean, I have never had anything spread by seed like that. I always I plant stuff. I'm like, okay, it's going to spread by seed. Good. Never have it,
You want to hear what?
Nothing.
I have chamomile that's coming up in the cracks of my backyard. That is from last year.
There you go.
It's actually doing better than the chamomile I started indoors from seed.
Shout out to the chamomile series or the herbal remedy series. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it after this show. But yeah, as we select our plants, you can make them more sustainable. And one way that we can do that too is by planting native plants. Okay, there's a big push for native plantings in the recent years, and with good reason. And it's amazing too. I have a problem making decisions. Did you know that? I'm not a good decision maker. Did you know that?
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I'm terrible at it.
Oh, that's why you always force me to make the decision. And then you're like, well, maybe not.
Yeah, I'm famous for that too. I'll be like, well, hold on. And I'll interject what I really want. Yeah. Imagine being married to me. So, a for real marriage. So, I liked that there's a difference, because then I can look up what are the native plants, and then it narrows down the list. But the thing is a lot of the plants that I already wanted were native, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah. It actually teeters back on garden design as well. So, you already mentioned, kind of thinking about drought tolerant plants, but there's also, especially for some of our perennials, vegetables or flowers. I have some oregano that came back last year, and damn it, it came back this year from last year. I'm so happy about that. But, you think about the size of plants as they kind of grow year over year. And their, again, watering needs as they get larger. So I don't think that you need to do like some deep dive on every plant that you're pulling into your garden,
No.
when you're thinking about your garden design. But I do think these are, the more you think about these things, the more natural it would be for you to, kind of gravitate towards maybe a native plant. Maybe a plant that, is a bee or butterfly drawer, something that draws in the bees or the butterflies. Like that becomes natural to you. And that's the hope.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the thing is too, is it has a lot to do with the pollinators for planting native. Like that's what it's like. They naturally, our pollinators that are here will go gravitate to that. And so the thing is, we're not sitting here saying like, all right, you don't have a native garden. Well, then you need to go pull everything up out of your garden and you need to get rid of it. And then you need to get all native. That's not what we're saying at all. But what we're saying is, or what I'm saying, and maybe Batavia will be online with me, is like, next time you go buy something to put into your garden, why don't you pick up something native? Mm-hmm. Just
here.
The next thing you get, whatever. It makes a difference. Every little step makes a difference. And there's been a lot of talk about, the bees are disappearing, and the bees are not the biggest pollinator we have either. Just FYI, it's a small portion of the pollinators. It's just the most famous one.
You've given us the stats on this before. I just don't recall them.
I haven't. I'm not going to pull them out of my memory bank. So you can look it up if you'd like, or you can search all the episodes and find that one. But it's
treasure hunt. Yeah, go ahead.
It's important to realize that, though. You know what I mean? Because we all think of the bees, but it's all the little stuff too that doesn't. That's not in there. So plant selection is a big part of, in your garden design for your pollinators. That's why I feel like it needed to be combined together.
Yeah. And if you look at the pollinator piece, let's just take a beat before we start to kill things. Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, don't get all kill happy.
The only thing that I'm always I basically toss it out of my garden and just hope it doesn't find its way, are grubs. Oh my gosh, I just get freaked out even saying the word. Oh my gosh, they're disgusting.
I pull them out and give them to the chickens.
I bet that's good eating for them.
They love them, man. They fight over them. So I was filming a video yesterday or whatever. It's out by now, but there's on my lettuce there was a big giant fuzzy spider. And I pulled the camera and I was like, man, that's the thing that horror movies and bad dreams are made of. You know what I mean? Like it really was. It was big. It was fuzzy. And I'm not scared of spiders, but it just gives me the heebie-jeebies thinking about it, like climbing up on me and stuff.
Yeah.
But how many people will see a spider and instantly kill it?
I imagine a lot.
That's not good. Right? Because that's a beneficial insect that we have. But that's like our first thing is like, I got to kill it. Because it's a spider. Spiders are gross. I got to kill it. But what is that spider doing to me? I'm not even going to touch the lettuce. So I'm not even going to bother it. I don't even need to get in there right now. So do your thing. You be you. I'm going to be me over here. You be you over there. It doesn't mean you have to kill everything that you see.
Yeah.
So it's all about being, selective and being, educate yourself.
Yeah.
We're not about to have entomology classes, but.
Exactly. And that's exactly where I'm headed, because some information I just want to learn through the natural course of living. Yeah. Right. I don't want to study everything. And so some of the general rules I use when it comes to that, just for a second here, is if there are a cluster of them, I'm looking it up to see if it's a problem.
Yeah.
If I see damage to a plant, I'm looking it up to make sure that that's what I believe, this insect, this bug, this whatever caused that damage. And then I'm thinking about remedies, right? I'm okay with killing some things, but I think my point earlier is just that let's not just kill everything.
Yeah. Just don't be all like murder happy. Because if we go into that and we combine that with plant selection, we need to talk about one thing: companion planting.
Oh, dear God.
I know. You know that we're becoming famous for our disdain for companion planting.
Oh, I have an article that I've been meaning to send to you. I haven't, I try to, if I'm going to share something, I try to read it. But I got through it. It was just like I was gritting my teeth, like, I knew it! Well, I guess I wasn't gritting my teeth. I was celebrating. So let me finish it. I'm going to share it with you. We'll probably post it on Patreon.
Yeah, we'll post it on for the patrons.
Yeah. So,
especially if it validates me, I definitely want to see it. But
yeah, if you insist.
But let's just say that it does make a difference. Or let's say, or as a matter of fact, let's just take our stance right now that we don't know. Like, it's inconclusive. The jury's out. What does it matter? You're still making that effort, right? And if you are trying to make an effort, in my mind, you're making a difference because you're changing your thought process. And you're not just talking about it, you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you're taking some action. Yeah. I think just the headlines are, maybe it's less about how should I say this? Maybe it's less about what the harms are when it comes to planting. So we talk about foes. Anytime we talk about companion planting, we talk about the foes. And then maybe it's just generally there's a lot that I'm looking at a new driver that's coming to my home trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Because in this moment, we're still under construction in the front yard garden. And he's figured out how to get in. Now he has to go through the obstacle course of all of the pots and the dirt and the bags that I have laid out, the shovels and the hose and all. So anyway, we're going to get off of him and we're going to focus on the plants. I lost a thought. Leonard should have redirected me if he was here.
Yeah, he should have.
Pick it up. Yeah, I got distracted.
Yeah, you totally derailed us. Thanks.
No problem. I'm excited about it. I know what the delivery is, but I'm not going to say.
No, we were talking about companion and foes.
Yeah. So focusing on, thank you, my friend. So we're instead focusing on there's so many things that are beneficial, right? Versus what is problematic. And it kind of gave you a license to say, like, you don't need to redesign your garden to kind of put these plants together, because in some cases there is no proven benefit, right? So anywho, I think that it's a consideration, as I continue to say. There's no Bible that I use when it comes to what to plant together. I'm actually always looking for what shouldn't I plant together versus what I should, I think maybe the most sustainable way, though, would probably be, what truly is going to benefit my green beans if I plant something with it.
So what did you think the most common or most famous companion planting pair is out there in your mind?
Marigolds and anything. Marigolds and tomatoes.
Yeah, right? Marigolds and tomatoes. So we think about that. We plant the marigolds and tomatoes. Do we know that they do anything? Do we know? Well, what we do know is it takes a lot of marigolds to make a difference. We do know that.
I'm telling you, neither of us have had our lunch, but clearly I'm affected by it and you're not. You are on your game.
I'm always on my game when I'm starving, so that's kind of my MO. But no, we know that, and we've proven it right here on the Backyard Gardens podcast. So there's that, and what we say is gospel. So as far as that goes, not really, but
you see how quickly that compliment went to his head. Good grief.
That's me joking.
I know.
But what is another benefit that you can say of having the marigolds in the garden? And that's just bringing the pollinators to it. So you're already getting a benefit, even though it's not technically a companion that we have discussed, Yeah.
And I think it's, so now we're going to teeter in kind of, cost savings as well. Marigolds spread, most of them. There are a bunch of varieties, but most of them spread, right? So this is where a little goes a long way. Like, that's a theme, pick up on it. So I think that it's also in that mind of, what is it going to harm? Not a whole lot, if anything. What is it going to help? It brings all the pollinators to the yard.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I mean, and they're
bring all the pollinators to the yard. Yeah, I was doing a remix there.
I know you were.
Most people think they're pretty. I do. I know some folks that don't.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't like them, but I think marigolds are underappreciated. That's just my thought. But that's another aspect. So we have fossil fuel on here, and Batavia and I were talking. We're like, well, I don't think it applies to this. But now, as I've thought about it, I think it does apply.
All right, go for it.
So this is as we talk about gardening, we've been talking about gardening as a micro scenario, your garden beds, but now we're going to back out and we're going to go macro. Okay. We're going to go macro with an A. And what that means is now we're looking at our whole properties, and what your property has on it is very important, because if you have, we know there's one thing for certain on this planet that happens every single day. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and it follows a track. So if you have in your house, let's say you've got some trees around your house, it provides shade in the hottest part of the day. That naturally brings our power bills down, because we're cooling it less in the summertime. Vice versa, maybe you live somewhere cold and you have that section of your house open for the sun to travel. So we are saving money, but we're also saving fossil fuels in the need of burning, coal or, nuclear power or whatever. Now, if you are blessed enough to have solar panels, good for you. I can't afford solar panels.
Yeah.
And before I get a lot of emails about, well, you can do this program and that program, no, you can't. So I'm good. But
yeah. So if we're looking at design, and let's say you're putting out new trees.
Yeah.
Let's say you're going, big like evergreens. Right? Obviously, the evergreens aren't producing food. But again, this is your garden space. You're allowed to put anything in it as long as
we're not
there's
just
a little bit of
vegetable
food.
gardening show.
Yeah, as long as there's a little bit of food. So, when you think about that, the reverse of it is if you have these big growing pieces, perhaps it's creating more shade in your house, less light in your house. Let's make sure that that's okay with you.
Right.
Because I clearly have some houseplants that need that light. Not on the second floor though. But anyway, I think it's an excellent point when it comes to kind of that macro view. And again, just ways that we can contribute, ways that you probably are already contributing to sustainable gardening, and, go ahead and say a sustainable lifestyle.
Well, and the thing is, you might be thinking, well, I can't plant a tree because it won't grow fast enough and I'll never enjoy the benefits of it. Well, there's a tree called the Thuja, and it's a cross with a green giant. It grows 3 to 4 feet per year. So there's hybrid poplars that grow very fast. Leland cypress and silver maples, all of those grow about 2 feet plus a year. So you can do the math. You know what I mean? It's a possibility to create this barrier for you if you need it. So just keep that in mind. One thing I noticed, this is actually, I'll save my tips for the end.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Thanks for the self-correction in mid-episode. So this is another big thought, right?
Macro? I like the word.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can tell. So it's not necessarily about what you will enjoy in the space you're in. If it's your forever home, then great. Yeah. Kind of walking through.
Yeah.
Maybe I want some faster growing trees, but maybe you're contributing again to the greater good by planting a tree that someone 10 years from now, is going to benefit from.
Yeah.
So, not to mention trees and the animals that hang out in the tree. Come on, listen now.
You're providing a habitat for other, all kinds of things. So
I wonder how many times I don't hear myself say, listen now. I heard it that time.
You don't hear yourself say it a lot, but I like it when you say it. I like it. And, when you incorporate these things inside of your garden, and we haven't even talked about, if we're going to continue to be macro for a minute, we haven't talked about adding birdhouses, adding bird feeders and, you know, the watering stations that we brought up in the last show. If you haven't heard it, you should go back and listen. We're not going to rehash it. We haven't talked about that and how decorations itself can help.
Yeah.
You know, now I will say that when we start talking about decorations, then you do have to factor in the manufacturing costs and all that. And that's where this stuff gets super slippery in my mind. I don't like, it makes me very uncomfortable because we're like, well, you know, I put this statue in there and it provides this shade, but it costs, you know, 3 megatons of smog to make it or whatever. You know, I'm not feeling that conversation. And I feel like people analyze it too much too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that I work with a fellow that is very much glass half full. You know, very much, you know, what do you mean? I enjoy lemonade, you know, like, you know, there's never a day where this thing is really sour and there's really just lemons here that we have. And we complement each other well, because I'm not exactly designed that. That's not kind of my makeup, you know, I'm not exactly built that way. And I look and I think about, especially when we were talking about something as broad as sustainable gardening, as broad as a garden design. If there is a rule book, which there isn't, but if there were a rule book, you would not get everything right. It's just not going to happen that way. So let's focus on those things that you can contribute. Yeah. You know, let's focus on those positives, right? It's, you know what? It is exactly like companion planting. Let's focus on the good things from it.
Yeah.
The hell with all the foes and the things that are said to be bad.
Just, I mean, you know, baby steps. So this leads us into a time period in which, go ahead.
Lights. I've been continuing to look for solar lights. You know, it's like, it's been a trend for a lot of years to have the string lights in your garden. And I want that, right? And I was looking up, I think I remember reading something about some bad things that are drawn in at night to those lights. And I'll figure out if that's really true. But I always run across a clearance sale on the lights you plug in, you know, and so I got one outlet in the backyard, but I really don't want to invest in that, you know, and I'm not saying that I won't one day, but I really want them to be solar lit, you know, no different than the little watering, I don't know what it's called, but it's the little mechanism that creates this. Let's call it that. The bubbler for my bird bath, like keeps the water moving. It's solar powered, right? You know, that's a small piece, but I don't have to have anything plugged up for a fountain. Some of those fountains are sexy as heck, but I don't have to do that. I don't have the space. I don't have to do, there's no construction I need to do. I can add this feature to my garden and it's just the good old sun. It's not going today because it's shade outside, but that's okay.
Do you want me to give you my thoughts on that?
Rocking and rolling tomorrow. I mean, you can do what you want.
So my thoughts about lights in the garden. I think that is not a good idea. And I believe that if you take away everything that we know and just have a bare earth, life needs light and dark. We don't need to light it up as well. Because I feel like it messes up with the rhythm, you know, the circadian rhythm of things and like that. Here you go, buzzwords. But I believe that there needs to be darkness at night. So I don't put those in. We have put them in like our front yard and stuff like that, entryway. And I will say this. So we were going to go into the tip section. I'll just go ahead and give you a tip. Don't buy cheap solar lights. Spend the money on the solar light. You'll be happy.
That's the reason why I haven't bought them.
Yeah.
So Science Daily, which, I mean, it seems legit, says artificial nighttime light from sources such as street lamps. I assume also would include kind of these types of lights we're talking about. It affects the growth of flowering of plants and even the number of insects that depend on the plants for food. So there's some study that's published. That was along the lines of what I remember reading somewhere else. And I don't know that, you know, I don't know what this website, this publication means, if it is legit, but it is something to consider when we're talking about garden design. I think it could be the effects are so minuscule where it could be something that still brings you some joy and happiness. But I get where you're coming from.
It's minuscule to an extent, but if everybody does it, there's this thing out there and it's called light pollution, and it's a travesty. What it means is there's only like 5% of the world left where you can go up and see the night sky like it actually was meant to be seen. We can't even comprehend what the night sky is supposed to look like. So when we have power outages here where I live because of hurricanes, the first thing I do is I run outside and I go look, and it is the most amazing thing you've ever seen. Because usually we'll lose power up and down our whole coast. So there will be no lights at night. And it's stunning to see. And Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking about that with Sandy. What he did is, when the power went out, they hit the telescope. And he was like, boom, there was 3 nights where he could just see for days. You know what I mean? So it's light pollution is a very serious problem, believe it or not, but teaches them.
It's a good thing we talked about it on this episode.
Yeah, but we're not talking about light pollution for sustainability, so.
Well, I mean.
So tips, give us a tip.
I've already given you 2.
Oh, come on. You can't back out now. It's not our fault that you passed them out early.
yeah, jumped the gun here. Yeah. So a tip with garden design. If you're revising your garden design, look for ways to reuse that material.
Dude, I like that. It's simple and it's a common sense one, but we might just want to upgrade everything, but to go ahead and I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're changing something, like it's your desire to change something, and repurposed feels overused, but that's a reality. And it doesn't have to be used in the same way, of course, that it was used originally. I've been watching a lot of videos, and I know how you're going to feel about this. It's the way that pallets have entered the garden space, and it's like you can rebuild this and you can rebuild that and you can make this and you can make that. And whether you believe in using pallets and whatever that material is made out of, that's not what we're here to discuss. This is the idea of it started off as something, and now you're creating 2 or 3 different purposes out of it.
Yeah, I use pallets a lot. I use them to make simple woodworking projects, and now I don't use them because I hate working with them, but that's different. But I use them in my garden for a lot of things. So yeah, I had one earlier that I was going to tell that was really good, and I forgot what it was.
Ooh, I know that you just didn't put me on the spot, made me give a third one, and then you're here like, well, I had a good one.
No, I'll give you a good one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you how to... A lot of people say when you water your gardens, you need to get an inch of water. Have you ever heard that? Inch of water a week?
Yeah, of course I have. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you how to get that measurement. It's as simple as setting out a container under your sprinklers in different portions of your garden and measuring the time frame in which you water, and then measuring how much is in that container. Okay, because what we want to do is, even though it says you want to give it an inch, you don't want to give it too little. But what is more important to this subject is we don't want to go over. So what I'll use is I'll get those aluminum pans. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. I'll use the aluminum pans for that. And then I'll reuse those afterwards to plant stuff in the wintertime. Like I'll do a lot of propagation I did a lot of lavender this year. And so I put like 15 lavenders in there and propagated them in there and then moved them on. So I'm reusing that again. But you can do that and then you'll see how much an inch is, and you'll know how long to water for and how much is left. And if you need to know water pressure, then you just spray water from your hose in a bucket for 1 minute. And see how much is filled up, and then you'll know.
Yep. I do something similar, and it's basically there's a count. So once I figured out how much the inch is, then because my settings normally stay about the same space.
Yeah.
And so it's like, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. And so, or I just settle in on 10 1,000s because that's easier for me to remember.
Yeah. Tuna cans work good for this too. So, all right. It's time for us to come... We've come across for the time for me to give you the recipe of the day.
Ben, what question do we get asked the most?
I would have to say it's probably more something like, what are the products we use in our gardens the most?
Ding, 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 ding. That's the correct answer. Hey, there's an Amazon link below.
When you get over to the Amazon store, know that you're going to be supporting the podcast, but all of the products both Batavia and I have used in our gardens. We want to see you all over on YouTube, so check us out at Backyard Gardens TV to watch our podcasts and other gardening videos. All right, it's that time of year, and everybody should at this point be either getting tomatoes or getting really close tomatoes to getting them. And if you're really close, that means you have what? Green tomatoes. And I'm going to tell y'all how I fry my green tomatoes. So what we do is we slice them however thick you want. I don't care, whatever you want to do. And I bred mine in cornmeal. And then I mix in salt, pepper, and sometimes we'll put Old Bay in as well. And if you're not familiar with what Old Bay is, it's a seafood seasoning, but it can go on seafood, chicken, all kinds of stuff. So we'll put that on there and we'll mix it in. And I do a dry batter. So I dry batter it, and then we either pan fry it or we air fry it. So if you pan fry it, we fill it up. We do not deep fry it. So we'll do like maybe a 1/4 inch of oil, maybe something like that, maybe less than that. And then we'll fry and flip and fry, or we'll put it in the air fryer. And if we do that, then we get vegetable oil and we just spray the vegetable oil spray, and we'll spray it on there, and then we'll cook it that way. And it's delicious. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm looking for a tomato that I can just grow green tomatoes off of and not even get ripe tomatoes because I love them so much.
Get out of my head. So I've been holding on to this because I know myself well, and I just don't know if I'm going to be able to actually come through with it. So I have so many tomato starts. I really considered earlier this season and like putting out, let's just even call it a container, right? At least one tomato plant. Well, actually, this goes back to last year. I thought about if I plant tomatoes in the front yard where they're exposed to the treacherous squirrels and things, maybe I'll just plant some that I'm okay with just staying green.
Say it,
and
don't spray
harvesting those. Yeah, I know. Did you see that?
I saw it. It was like super glad there's distance today.
Yeah. So, anywho, with the idea of harvesting all of those as green tomatoes. And I'm so happy that you brought that up as a reminder, one. And two, it also reminds me of just such the blessing of being able to have enough tomatoes to grow to say that I'm just going to look at that plant and pull green tomatoes off of it. I'm not even going to give you a chance to ripen, So,
well, I eat green cherry tomatoes.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to be rude to you and say what I'm thinking when you.
What are you saying when you think that?
It's just, I know I've seen a recipe of yours because there's a certain tartness that comes with it.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a part of like kind of training of there's a texture that I'm expecting and there is a taste. And, gosh, if I find a ripe sweet tomato, that's something. And green tomatoes ain't that.
Yeah, So, by the way, I have a tomato that I put in a pot that I am going to single stem.
Come on.
I am going to single stem it just for you. So, and I'm going to grow it right next to one that I'm not going to single stem. So we'll see which one gets more.
You make my garden heart sing.
I'm doing it. I'm going deep on this test. So
yeah.
They're going to be right next to each other. But yeah, I want everybody to know one thing. I want to tell you a story time. Okay, everybody, come on up to the carpet. It's carpet time. We're going to sit with our legs crossed and turn the lights to low. Here we go. I know a guy, and he at one point weighed 600 pounds. And he went through the whole process to lose weight. And now he weighs 180 pounds. The question is, do you know what he did to get started on that journey? He ate one piece of celery a day. That's all he did. He ate one piece of celery a day, and it made that difference. You making one thing can make a difference, one small thing. Just remember that moving forward. And on that
Ding.
note,
see ya.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. Please follow us on YouTube at Backyard Gardens TV.
Instagram at Backyard Gardens TV. Over on our website, backyardgardenstv.com. And then we have Patreon at Backyard Gardens.
And don't forget to check out our links below to help the show. Thank you so much for joining us as we learn to grow and grow for change. Cut.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Backyard Gardens podcast.
If you like what we're doing and you want to continue to support the podcast, head over to our Patreon page to sign up.
You can also make a one-time donation using PayPal. Both of these links are in the description.
With your support, we can continue growing and helping others in their gardens. See ya.
If you guys want some Backyard Gardens gear,
Go to the link below and check out our t-shirts, mugs, pint glasses, and other gear.
all purchases go towards helping to support the show, so thank you so much in advance, and we hope you enjoy. We want everybody to have a garden, and we're going to give you a chance to win free seeds every month.
Head over to backyardgardenstv.com and enter your email address to be entered in all of our giveaways.
Good luck!
We want you to be a part of our gardening community. DM us a picture of your garden at Backyard Gardens TV on Instagram, and we will share it with our listeners.